to see that reversing today, Nora, but I guess that's just been the story as of late. Some days are good for the AI-oriented trade, and some days are not.
Well, Kaylee, it's been a bit of a push and pull. I honestly feel so dizzy just trying to keep up with chip makers and how investors are viewing tech right now. On the one hand, you have investors that are concerned that these companies have taken on way too much debt, and maybe we've seen a rally in tech go too fast, too far. But I mean, potentially on the other end, you have people saying that, tech is the way to go, and there are pockets of opportunity. But what I've been hearing from sources as well is that, a richly valued market is more vulnerable to some of the negative headlines that we've been seeing. So you will expect some of these things after a strong rally as we think about the broader macro picture. Investors are all still thinking about inflation, especially with these renewed fears about energy, also supply disruptions potentially, and when we think about the Strait of Hormuz.
Interesting to see NVIDIA moving higher today. It's actually doing better than we've seen in several sessions here, up 3% as China greenlights some sales of H200 chips. Micron's getting a little bit of a bid. It was actually higher earlier and now down just a fraction of 1%. Interest rates are another story, Nora. They've been pretty sticky here and pretty stubborn when you look at the 10-year holding well above 4.5, 4.57, the 2 years at 4.21. Obviously, the long bond has been holding well over 5%. This is keeping a lid on things, huh?
Certainly, especially as we think about the bond market more broadly and how investors are thinking about it there. In the equity market, we have been seeing, of course, still double-digit gains if you look at the year-to-date scope for the NASDAQ. So as we continue to keep an eye on tech, we are still seeing strength there. So while we have been seeing these headlines that have been rattling markets here and there, you are still seeing investors pushing through and along. And what I've also been hearing from my sources is just the idea of maybe some short-term volatility, but not necessarily that reflecting on the broader landscape and outlook for the market more broadly.
All right, Bloomberg Markets correspondent Nora Melinda, thank you so much. As Nora said, markets being rattled by headlines here, specifically when they are coming from President Trump and when they are pertaining to Iran, as he declared the memorandum of understanding dead, the ceasefire over, and suggested that the U.S. could once again strike Iran tonight. So for more, we turn to the former chair of the House Financial Services Committee and former Speaker pro tem, now Bloomberg Politics contributor, Patrick McHenry. Mr. Chairman, always good to have you. As we consider this notion of resumed hostilities with Iran, even if the president suggests that we're not going back to war outright, I would imagine if you're a member of the House or someone up for re-election in the Senate and you're home right now, you're having to answer to this for your constituents, right? I would imagine that as we draw closer to the midterms, these kind of headlines only get harder for electeds to navigate.
Yes, it's uncertain for all of us watching the situation, but particularly jarring for those seeking re-election and trying to give your constituents a sense of certainty, especially about the cost of things in their life, particularly gas prices. It's very hard for an elected official to say that we're in much better shape than we otherwise should be, given the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. That's a very hard message, but America is in a dramatically better position than where we've been in previous generations with our oil supply and production and refining capacity here in the United States. That's a lame message to take if you're running for re-election, that things could be worse. That is never a good election year message, but that's what they have to contend with right now.
Mm-hmm. As somebody who's run for re-election a couple times, Mr. Chairman, you wonder what the mentality is going to feel like by Labor Day. And I don't know if you buy into that long-standing bit of wisdom that people start to solidify their opinions right around the beginning of September, and that's when these races start to harden, that the races start to codify themselves based on what we're seeing in the current standing in the polls. Right now, I guess everybody's on the beach, you know that, they're not paying quite as much attention. But when does $3.79 become a real problem for consumers who are starting to make decisions for November?
Well, it's currently a problem for families that are traveling this summer. This is prime travel season, prime motoring season in the United States.
And when do they connect the dots to elections?
But you're right. At Labor Day, it does solidify. Everything kind of crystallizes, and feelings get locked in. And since Election Day is no longer really Election Day, once you hit the month of October, you have people voting or starting to vote across the country. That means that you basically have a month-long election day here in the United States. And so you really want to have your act together. And as an incumbent running for re-election, especially as a Republican going into a midterm, it's going to be tough. It's a very tough message. So that is when you want to have things have a smoother path forward when it comes to Iran and with energy prices. You want to see things starting to recede by then. Otherwise, it's going to lock in a very negative view for Republicans, a negative view for President Trump going into Election Day, which is really